Welcome back to Firefly Studios. My name is Kadia, and today we will be continuing our Unity C# fundamentals. We are going to go on to arrays and loops today. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new script. Arrays are very similar to variables. They are a way to store multiple versions of the same type of information. Versions isn't the best word. Multiple different variables of the same type. That's a better way to phrase it. The way you make an array is very straightforward. So it's just like a variable. So I'm going to do a public, and we'll do game object. And then you just add these brackets right there, and then you name it. So spawn points. For this example, we'll make these transforms. So we only care where a spawn point is. We'll do spawning. So here, what we want to happen is inside of a custom function. So I'm going to make a public void spawn. And inside of this function, we want to spawn something at a random spawn point. There's two steps to this. The first step is we need a random number. So our random number is going to be a int. So we'll do int rand equals random.range. And then we will choose 0 and then spawn points. Sorry, need a comma here. Spawn points.length. Then we will spawn something. So instantiate, we'll do a public game object thing to spawn. So this is what we want to spawn. Instantiate is just a fancy word for spawn. It requires a thing to spawn. It requires a location to spawn at, which is going to be spawn points rand dot position. And then it requires a rotation, which is going to be spawn points at rand dot rotation. Helps if I type the right thing. All right. So why do we have this set up here? And why is it set up like this? So the way a spawn point works, or a transform array of spawn points works, the best way is to just show you. So I'm going to create it, and then you will have the illustration, and that'll make it a little bit easier to understand. So I'm going to call this spawn points. So I've got empty game object, and I'm going to just make 3. Duplicate and duplicate. All right. So this is going to have our array script on it. And if you notice right here under spawn points, that's the array that we made, we have an option where it says list is empty. This makes it something but then it's going to be game object 2. Then we just need something to spawn. So we're going to make our life easy and say we're just spawning a circle. I'll go ahead and move the circle off screen. So these spawn points, I'm going to move one over here. I'm going to move this one over here. And I'm going to move this one over here. One handy trick you can do to make it so you can see your spawn points is if you shift select all 3 of them, you can click on this little cube right here, just this guy right here, and then select a thingy for it. Because of this lock, I had to uncheck it and then do like that. There we go. Now we got our 3 little spawn points. So the way an array works is you have a list of stuff. So I've got my game objects in each of these, so 1, 2, and 3. And then I've got an index. That's these element parts. So at index 0, it corresponds to our game object transform here. Element 1 corresponds to game object 1. Element 2 corresponds to game object 3, and so on and so forth. So it starts at 0, which means our index, this number right here, will always be 1 behind our actual thing right here. So the way you access a piece of information from our spawn points is we can just feed it an index. So in start, if I do spawn points at index of 1, this will return the medium one, dot name, we'll go with that. And I'm going to put this in a debug.log. So we will see in our console, when we hit play, debug.log, the name of our second object, which in our case, I'm going to move this over here, which in our case is going to be game object 1. So I'm going to hit play. I'm going to come over to our console and see it says right there, game object 1. So now we just need to hook up our spawning. So the way our spawning works is we choose a random number. This is going to be our index at a random range. So this just means a random number between 0, which is our lowest possible index, and spawn points.length. The length property of an array is just how many items are in the array. So in our case, we have 3 total items. So this is going to be a random number between 0 and 2, or 0 and 3. Sorry, it is exclusive, which means it won't include 3 as an option for the random.range calculation. So it's effectively going to be between 0 and 2, which are the index options that we want. So in our instantiate line, it's going to spawn whatever we tell it to spawn, in our case, the circle, and at a random spawn point, at whatever index it generates there. So if I hit play, or I need to call this function first. So we're going to just do on a button press so we can see it. If input.get key down, key code, space. We'll put it on the space bar. Actually, we want it on something different. We'll put it on the T key. Here we're going to spawn AWN. So now if I come over here to our script, I'm going to hit play, and then whenever I press T, we should see a circle spawn at one of our options. So I'm going to press T. Oh, that's because I need to be in the game window. There we go. We got one that spawned there. I'm going to press T again. Now one spawned over here. Press T again. Now one spawned over here. I'm going to press T again. Another one spawned, but they're just overlapping. So there's actually two right here. So that's how arrays work. It allows us to choose get a list of information, get an index that corresponds to that information, and then refer to points along that list. The most common use I've used arrays for is for spawning, but there's tons of things that you use them for in game development. Yeah, we'll call it here. We'll go into loops in the next video. Thank you for your time. Hope you had at least found something interesting from this. Please smash the like button, subscribe if you found this interesting, and have a good rest of your day.